Hi folks, Tim Sundles here again, and it's Mother's Day, and I have my beautiful wife Kim doing the filming on my iPhone. I've been accused of not liking the 10mm. I very much like the 10mm. So I wanted to do a video specifically on the 10mm and its purposes, its capabilities, because it's a really versatile cartridge. It's just that for outdoor applications, it's not quite as effective as certain 45 ACP loads or 45 super loads. And everybody thinks it is because it penetrates deeper. I've done a ton of videos on it. 45 ACP plus P with the right ammo penetrates plenty deep enough and makes a lot bigger hole. Let's talk about the 10mm because it's super duper versatile and useful. This was the first 10mm I ever bought. 1987, first release of the Colt Delta Elite in 10mm. This came out right after the Bren 10 had its early demise. This is a good gun. This is far different from the later versions of the Colt Delta Elite that Colt has brought out. Some of those have serious problems. This thing, not so much. I've had it since 1987. I started hand loading and experimenting with the 10mm using this gun since 1987. I've carried this gun for defensive purposes. So just so you understand that I'm not new to the 10mm. This pistol I had custom made on a Para-Ordnance P14 frame so I could have a 15 shot 10mm. At the time, Para-Ordnance wasn't making the frames for 10mm. They were making them for 45, calling them the P14. Well, this is a 15 shot 10mm, and I carried it defensively quite a bit over the years. And you can generally tell if you look at the rear sights and the front sight there, when I have painted them like that, it's because I've been carrying the gun. I also, widened that rear notch for just a faster sight picture. A carry gun for me isn't necessarily about target shooting. I'll mess with my sights and stuff to make them for fast target acquisition. And, as long as I can, neutralize a human threat at 25 yards, that's all the accuracy I need. Now, before we get into the Glocks, I want to go over the ammunition choices. This is outdoor ammunition for the 10mm. This is carry ammunition. You'll notice it says lower recoil tactical. And I'm going to go over the whys and wherefores of each. In our company, we make about 300 different items. This one right here is the #1 seller. It's a 220 grain hard cast Glock, 10mm that functions really well in the Glocks. Now, the recoil is substantially more than standard 10mm ammo with this, and so I'm going to go into actually how to handle your pistol when you're shooting it to keep you from having feed failures in your Glocks. The Glock's a light pistol. That ammunition is heavy recoiling because it's made for crushing bears. And you can see it's got a flat nose on it if Kim goes right up and looks at it from the top. It's flat nosed. It's full power, super turbocharged, barn burning 10mm ammo. We sell more of that than anything else. When people run into having a cycling issue with their Glocks, it's because the Glock is a lightweight pistol. So when they fire, if they don't have heavy forearms, heavy wrists, and a firm grip, what happens is the gun goes wham like this back. Well, then as it comes forward, that's the same time the slide is coming forward, and you take the inertia out of the slide coming forward by moving the gun forward, and you get a failure to cycle because you've counterbalanced the inertia of the slide coming forward by going forward. So the way to shoot a Glock Model 20 with a really powerful outdoorsman type load is to hang on to that sucker, I even take my finger up here and hook the trigger guard with it. And so it comes back like this instead of back like that. And I don't have my hand going forward, taking the inertia out of the forward movement of the slide. Therefore, I get reliable cycling. This we call limp wristing. That's just the term that's always been used. Firm grip, and as long as you're strong, you can see my hands are way too big. I just have big hands. I mean, and so what, I'm different than most people. What works for me with grip configurations on pistols doesn't always work for the majority of people. Anyway, that's a quick lesson. Now,
so again, for all you Karens that want to school Tim on how to shoot, what do you have to say?
Oh shit, we get emails and messages all the time. Well, you don't hold a gun right. You know what? I've got so many thousands of rounds of 500 line ball fired and heavy 44 mag and 475 line ball and 454 Casull. Believe me, I know how to hold a hard kicking gun. Okay.
It depends on the pistol or the revolver.
Well, yeah,
or the
and the dynamics of a revolver are way different than the dynamics under which a semi-auto operates. So please spare me and just understand, I have about 500 handguns and I shoot them a lot, and I have been, like I said, I've been shooting this one since 1987.
So if you want to go to your schools and you want to learn, that's great. We're very happy for you. Learn what you want to learn. Don't worry about telling Tim how to hold his firearms. Thank you very much.
So this load here is also a very good outdoors load. This is a 200 grain full metal jacket flat nose. And if for some reason you don't like hard cast, this is its substitute in a jacketed load. And it's also a very good seller for us, but nothing outsells, in the whole company, nothing outsells this item 21C. This item is a mono metal, so the bullet is really long. It's 190 grains. I'd love it if it was heavier, but in mono metal, the copper and brass is much lighter for its length than stuff that has lead in it. Lead's pretty dense, pretty heavy. So the bullet gets so long that it crowds the powder capacity and we really can't go any heavier. This is probably in our top 5 seller also. And there's been multiple grizzlies and moose killed with it. It's, in terms of raw killing power, it's not quite as good as this one, but it's negligible. The difference is negligible. This, you'll notice, for an outdoors load is the only jacketed hollow point I have up here. And this would probably be okay for medium-sized black bears and stuff, but why I put it here is it is our full power 10mm, and if you want to hunt deer and those kinds of critters with the 10mm, this is the load to use. This is our item 21B, as in boy, and it's for hunting. And even so, if I was gonna hunt deer or black bears or something with this load, I'd make my first couple of shots with this load, and everything else in the magazine would be one of these non-expanding deep penetrators here. Because if you don't put it down with your first shot or two, it's going to be running away or running toward you or running sideways, and you want penetrating ammo that will penetrate like crazy. Now I'm going to get back into the Glocks in a minute for a good reason.
Then you'll be cited by Fish and Game for waste and want.
Well, you could get a ticket for wanton waste. Okay. You'll notice these are lower recoil tactical loads. I developed these for my use 20 some years ago because I was carrying a 10mm a lot for, personal defense. And these barn burning, full powered, mega crazy loads recoil too much for me to do a real fast double tap. If you want a fast second and third follow-up shot, you don't need so much recoil. And these are far more powerful than you need for a human threat. You can scale it down to these tactical loads, which are still substantially more powerful than a 40 Smith & Wesson. And again, for social carry, this is what I do. Everybody else can do what they want. I'll have 2 of these, one in the chamber and one first in the magazine, and everything else in the magazine is going to be a non-expanding bullet in case, if you don't put the person down with the first 2 shots, they are going to get behind something, you know. And if they're still armed with a gun or a knife, or if there's more than one assailant, and you may not even know if there's more than one, you need to neutralize them while they're behind cover. They can shoot you from behind cover. So I always want penetrating bullets after the first couple shots when I'm carrying for social work. You know, people think, well, they got behind cover, they're not a threat anymore. Are you kidding me? If they've got a gun, they are. And what if they have 2 guns? What if you saw them drop their gun, but they got another one tucked in their waistband?
That's a prosecutor's opinion.
Yeah, this is, you know, my wife and I were talking about this earlier, how prosecutors get into this thing. Well, he was behind cover. He obviously wasn't a threat. Really, you moron. Of course they're a threat. What are they doing in your house? What are they doing attacking you in the first place? What if they have another gun? What if there's more than one of them? What if? What if they never dropped their primary gun when you shot them the first 2 times? They can shoot you from behind cover. What is wrong with the thinking of people? I got to tell you, animals don't get as screwed up in their thinking as humans. Humans are just, sorry folks, we're stupid. You know, in the animal world, every male animal knows he's a male animal. Every female animal knows she's a female animal. But you come to humans and they want to complicate everything. People are just a problem. You know, we need to quit this crap. So, back to the 10mm and back to Glocks. I have more Glock 10MMs than this, several more, because they're the most used 10mm platform in the world. So this is the Glock Model 40. It's their long barrel version. And it's fine for a woods gun. I actually prefer it to the Glock 20 just because of the longer barrel and the longer sight radius. You know, in the woods, I'm not looking to necessarily conceal guns. In a shoulder holster, the way I carry, this thing's very concealable anyway, regardless of the extra, you know, what, 1.5 or 1.25 long barrel. Get a little more velocity, you get a little less muzzle blast, and a longer sight radius, which is the part that matters to me the most. All this ammo was developed in these guns. This is your standard Glock Model 20, probably the most common 10mm in the world. You know, it's probably a 15 or 14 shot pistol. I have many of these. I've even blown some up, you know, testing ammo to see what the gun will take. The first time I did it, I wasn't being as careful as I should have, and the gun blew on me. And it was actually just the case web ruptured, which blew the plastic frame to pieces. Of course, I wasn't wearing a glove, and I didn't have the right kind of face protection. I spent 3 weeks picking little chunks of black plastic out of my forehead.
And we didn't sue Glock.
No, it was actually my fault.
Oh.
You know.
That's novel.
Yeah, well, I wasn't getting participation trophies in the 6th grade when my team lost, so I'm not entitled. I figured that blowing the gun up was on me. Even though I was testing new powder from a new powder importer in the country that told me what charges to use to start with, I reduced their starting charge by a grain and still blew the gun up on the first shot. You know, and if I was one of these mamby-pamby cry and whine and moan and piss babies running around, I would have sued that powder importer. You know, but so what? But it was kind of funny because up here in my forehead, as weeks went by, I'd get a little pimple. I'd get a little whitehead. I'd go, that's weird on my forehead like that. And I'd squeeze it and there'd be a chunk of black plastic in it. So, you don't want to blow guns up. And this is that little Glock. I don't remember what model this is. This is the model 29. I get the 29 and the 30 mixed up. The 30's 45, the 29 is 10. Now, I have some comments to make. This thing cycles reliably with all of our ammo. But we get a lot of customers that have problems with the full powered loads cycling in these. Why? You've got less slide travel. That slide does not come back as far. That slide is shorter. It cycles faster. And the 10mm was originally designed for 1911 size pistols. Those are 5-inch barrels. And every time we take a cartridge that was designed for a certain use and a certain way of being used, a certain firing platform, and then we just, hey, let's make a subcompact. Okay, I'm a fan of subcompact pistols. I don't trust this thing in 10mm. The 10mm is longer and skinnier than a 45 ACP. And short and fat is really nice when you want to cycle things through machinery. Long and thin, not as nice. I don't care what kind of an item it is, cartridge, anything, if you're cycling it through machinery, short and fat is always more reliable than long and thin. And everybody's carrying these because they're small, they're nice. I have one or two of the Glock 30s, which is this counterpart in 45 ACP that I really like. And I mean, they're just hyper reliable and everything because of the short, fat cartridge design versus the long, thin cartridge design. So.
But you are very experienced.
Well, yeah, that's the whole point of this. I'm just in a unique situation to talk about this. I mean, I just don't know guys that have been hand loading for and shooting the 10mm since 1987. I don't know guys that have, I probably have at least 10 or maybe a dozen 10mm pistols. I don't know guys that, do the kind of stuff I do. So I'm not singing my own praises. I'm giving you the reasons why I know what I know, how I've developed the opinions I've developed, why I do what I do. And I'm not a beginner at any of this. I have killed animals, several animals, big game animals with the 10mm. It's not something I'm hypothesizing on. I've been there and done it. And I will warn you, with when Colt started making, they discontinued these a long time ago, like in the mid 90s, maybe the late 90s, these Delta Elites. And then they started making them again about, 15 years ago, because there was a demand. People kept going, why don't you bring the Delta Elite back? And their later versions have problems, typically. I mean, that's just the way it goes with gun manufacturing companies. They put way too much, to make it cycle reliably, they opened up the bottom end of the chamber where the case head sits, and there's too much of the web that's exposed and not supported by chamber. And the 10mm case is much stronger than the 40 Smith & Wesson case, even though dimensionally they're the same except for length. But that's external dimensions I'm talking about. Internally, the 10mm has a much thicker web and a much stronger web and even different material in the web than a 40 Smith & Wesson case. So you can't say what works in 10 will work in a 40 Smith & Wesson because the cases are different. You can't tell that by looking at them externally. But anyway, a whole lot of the recent batches of Delta Elites with all this chamber relief in them to facilitate cycling, again, they've got to facilitate cycling for a longer, thinner cartridge. So they chose to put a long feed ramp up into the barrel and keep the bottom end of the chamber open. Okay, great, but you're blowing case webs out. Again, design engineers need to be the guys on the end of the product using it. A lot of people's hypothesis falls apart when they actually go use the product in the real world. What's that old saying? every boxer has a plan till he gets hit in the face. Well, okay, if you're not a boxer or haven't been a boxer, don't design boxing products, please. And don't give me advice on boxing. You know, save that for the end users that actually do it. Anyway, enough preaching. I hope everybody's having a happy Mother's Day. And hopefully this video is of benefit to someone. And I'll bid you adieu, and God bless, and we'll see you on the next video.